we're still hanging out. It was cool, but wow.
7.5 hour day. That's pretty tough.
Yeah, yeah.
I had a break
After
for lunch today, so I decided, you know what? I've been busy yesterday and today. And I thought, hey, I'm just going to take a break and try to cover some quick little things that some people ask for, like on just doing the player creation. So
oh, great.
I just did that today for about 50 minutes, walked them through how I actually build a player and then built one in to the MLB Greats file. And then,
Cool. So you
yeah,
got some people in, right?
I've got some people in now, and they happen to be
See?
Cleveland and Pittsburgh players I was going to show off here and see what you think.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, two cities are 85 miles apart. Why not?
So I've only added in. So pretty soon here by the weekend, I'll have like 20 some players in here to be able to play against or amongst the Negro League players.
Brilliant. I'm off this weekend too, so yeah.
So hopefully, I guess I am streaming. I guess this is live, but you can see here's it says 1940 Indians because all I did was just set these are going to be kind of placeholder teams for when I create the players to put them on. I just put them in a neutral park
Okay.
1940, and these are four completely done players that I have for the Indians.
Tough players too.
And there's LaJoy,
All scary
LaJoy.
guys. Lajoie, yeah. These
Yeah.
guys are all scary guys.
So you can see, like currently, the team he's on. I don't have him assigned to a park, but I kind of went through today and explained how I'm doing the neutralizing and ballpark factors, and I call it the crunching of the data. So I did that.
Right.
Robbie, hey,
You got
hey, Big Clue
how
and
you doing,
Robbie
man?
are here. Yeah, Beatles. We thought we'd just come on and chat it up here a little bit and see if anybody's got any questions. I'm going to let him know. I've got some extra players I built in today. He's going to know some of these players on Cleveland, and then we'll get to Pittsburgh.
Absolutely. And
So
Robbie's the man of the hour, apparently, according to Big Clue.
really,
Did we miss something?
just an hour. All he gets is an hour.
Jeez.
That's it. Not even man of the
Big
day.
Big Clue's not doling it out very much there. All right.
Wow.
Anyhow, man, go forth. Yeah, let's
Yeah.
see.
So here's LaJoy. So we've got nickname on there, all the good stuff, right? And there, he's ready
Uh-huh.
to roll. This has all been neutralized, and all his stats have been re-maneuvered based on the factors that he played under right for 1904 League Park. He's ready to go.
Nice.
He says, "How are we going to help him out if we're not building him up?" Right?
Oh, Robbie, you are in my book, buddy, you are the man of yeah. You are. No, you are. You really are. That sound convincing enough?
Sometimes when
Robbie
I go
knows I'm
live
messing with him.
or you go live, I think Robbie sometimes is the first more than anybody
He
on
is.
in the room.
Oh yeah, yeah. He's always first at the ballpark when I'm doing something. So
But yeah, here's Lajoie. So
right.
384. Now this is based on his best 3 years. One of those years was with the Philadelphia A's, I think 1901, and then the other two with the Indians. So
Right. I mean, he's most known as a Cleveland, so that works out perfectly. He had the whole team named after him.
yeah, the Naps. So yeah, there's his rating. He's at second for the 3 years I'm using. He's got second in shortstop potential.
Oh yeah.
Um, Always somebody you might want on your team. You've got the Gray Eagle here.
Yeah. Oh, Tris Speaker's one of my favorite players of all time.
Yeah.
He used to play so shallow. He would play like practically behind second base and would still be able to run down balls, hit out. I mean, he was just incredible from every account I've read.
One reason he played in, he was able to use the arm here. No, that's a lot of outfield assists, right? Hard to
Yes,
get assists if you're out at the warning track.
exactly.
We also have Earl Averill, the Earl of
Excellent player.
Snohomish,
Yup.
or Rocky, or the Rock, he's known as. I may go change modify his nickname to be the Earl of Snohomish. I like that name.
Nice.
Oh, Big
All right.
Clue's got to go drive the missus around.
Yeah. There'll be some baseball, Big Clue, so we'll be looking for you.
Oh yeah,
Not 7 hours, but
not.
there'll be baseball.
This is just the warm up before Beatles gets into the real stuff later. It's just like the warm up band here. Yeah, Earl Averill got him built, so
Superb.
not the best of fielders, but take a look at his batting line, right? A lot of power.
Oh yeah,
336 hitter. Um,
yeah. I
and
would
how
want
about
to
this
pitch
guy?
to him.
Because he had some much better seasons with Cleveland. I think a lot of people just think Joe Jackson. They think of the White Sox scandal.
White Sox, right? Hey, there's Aaron coming in to say hi.
Aaron Reed, hello, hello. Hey,
Yeah, Joe Jackson.
isn't Aaron going to be doing some calling some play-by-play soon?
He wants to do something tomorrow night on the Ned McGreevy League. He wants to do color. You got a lot of dudes coming in.
That's awesome.
Nice. Hey, MV, World's Worst Gamer. Hey, guys.
Wow, we got everybody coming in. I was going to go. I had some time here, a little bit of time in the afternoon. I was going to get on there and maybe see if anybody had any questions on the hour broadcast I did today on player creation. I saw Beatles was getting ready to fire a game up, so we thought we'd just hook up and chat some baseball. And I'm going to show him. I think I've got 4 or 5 for the Cleveland Indians and the Pirates built that he can take a look at. This is his era,
Nice.
right? This is very Ned McGreevy-ish here.
Cool.
Shoeless Joe. Now let's go take a look at the Pirates.
All right. Yeah, Shoeless Joe. I guess apparently Babe Ruth patterned his swing after Joe Jackson.
Hmm.
So that's kind of interesting. Oh, man. Yeah, you got some good players here.
We got Big and
Max
Little
Carey.
Poison.
Max Carey, what a great center fielder he was. You know what? Lloyd Wayner's not going to get. He's got the higher average. But boy, I don't know. That's tough. You got two tough center fielders there. You could,
Yes.
move those guys in and out, which is nice. But Hannes Wagner, there we go.
And look at this. And Carey, look at his stolen base. So, you got speed and a little bit better range out there. But, what do you
Yeah,
do with Wayner? That's like, gosh, we've got to DH him. But, well, he could spot play left, but I don't have. I'm trying to think who in left field we're going to have on that team eventually. I don't know if there's one that
for
stands out to
Pittsburgh.
me. Say pre World War
Yeah,
II.
yeah, pre World War II. Oh well, if you want to go, yeah, Fred Clark.
Fred Clark, yeah.
Yep, Fred Clark. That's who you want in left field. If we're going,
Um,
if you want to go back, well, which you are, you have Wagner. So yeah, definitely Fred Clark.
and let's do a little something here. Let me check the rules and I'll drop some pictures in.
Sweet.
The old reminder here to use subfolders.
I'm still. So that's the
Boom.
thing. Maybe you could answer. Maybe the room would be happy to hear this too.
Oh,
So
check
when I
this out.
set up rules, how do So I know like to tick that box that says to look in subfolders, but how does the game know what subfolder to look at?
Check
That's
this out
what I'm
right
not
here.
getting. Okay.
I'm going to pull a screen. I'm going to pull up another screen to show everybody this, right? Hopefully here.
Okay.
So here's my directory, and you can see this happen live in the moment because I've watched this. So I'm going to go to
Okay.
my DK Sports data, baseball,
Okay.
player photos, right?
Okay.
Now you can see that I have photos sitting there, which is just general, right? Those
Right.
show if I don't have this subfolder checked, right? But you'll
Exactly.
notice that whatever the league name is, like what am I calling this? Okay, this is MLB Great. So when I go to click on this button here, it's immediately going to make a folder that's the same name as my league name.
Oh wow.
So,
Okay.
and see down here, down here where you
Oh,
select
wait,
your,
you did that from Windows Explorer and it just did that? Or
yeah,
did I
well,
just miss something?
okay, it's going to do it. So I'm showing you,
Oh
hopefully you can
wow.
see over here, this is inside my folder. Now watch what happens.
Yeah.
Because right now it's going to look at all of these that are just out there under player photos. But watch when I click
Uh-huh.
this. Save. Watch.
Okay.
Did you see over on the right? It just now
Oh
created the
yeah.
folder.
Oh my God.
So that's how easy it is. So if you don't select, so now that it's selected the folder and I have that button clicked, it's going to look inside this folder for the photos.
I'll be
Okay.
damned. Wow,
If
I
you
I
if
didn't
you
know that.
if you uncheck it, then it's going to look in the general player photo pool out here where I just have all the mass ones done.
So the program somehow when you're clicking on something in Windows Explorer, it the game would okay, I didn't know that it even existed.
Yeah. So now if we go under rules, so I just go
Uh-huh.
into Explore, and this is a way I can go look at my photos, right, to see how they look. So I just go into my DK Sports folder, and you can
Right.
see I have some here for the Negro Leagues Great team, right? And I can grab them and say, hey, you know what? I have them all here for this one, but if I create a new folder, I could go in here and just merge them or grab them and drop them.
That's crazy.
So here's, let me pull up another window. We'll show you how we'll do this. So we'll leave it on the subfolder. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. And I'm going to bring up another window.
Because I have like decade packs of
Yeah.
like photos, right? So I'm thinking I want to do that. I don't want to have to go through. Like if I have to reassign somebody, it's a little bit easier to work
Yeah.
just in 10-year bytes than the entirety of baseball.
Yeah. So I'm going to click on great. So now greats, yeah, this is just probably a placeholder, not even a real photo, right? I have
Sure.
greats that it's going to look
Uh-huh.
for. So now let's go to my MLB greats where I have a bunch of these cards done,
Okay.
and I can just select them and I'll copy and I'll paste them.
That's crazy.
Boom. So now there they are. So if I go up one level, now you can see that I have my general player photo here, but now I have, since I told it under rules, right over here, that I
Uh-huh.
wanted to locate it in the subfolder, it will create a subfolder based on whatever name of the league you're in. So if you see down here, I happen to be in MLB greats, right? If you went into like 1951 and you said
Uh-huh.
locate in subfolder, you'll look over here immediately and it will create a 1951 subfolder for you. So like if you're going to do a season replay and
Wow.
wanted to have specific for each league, you can do it. So now I can come in here and edit. I say, oh, this the game's going to look at all these, and you can see some of these I don't have templates on, but for the players now, when we go back to the rosters, they should show. They should show,
Wow.
and there they start
That could
showing.
that's incredible. I
So
didn't because I that was the missing link for me.
yeah, so now I can go into player photos and nickname and say, hey, what I got going on here? Oh, there's Max Carey. Okay, cool. Um, I got Pie Trainer, Honus Wagner. Oh, I got a few pictures for him, right?
Yeah.
Got Lloyd Wayner. Yeah, I'll choose that one. Paul Wayner. I've got a few here for him. Maybe I pick this one. So anyway, hopefully this is helpful to
Nice.
people, but it's really,
Super
um,
helpful.
yeah, and I have no idea why Max Carey's picture's not showing up. It should. Whoops, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
It's it's
Max looks
it's
like you have a lot
roster
done.
tools. Maybe it might be the format that one's in. So,
Could be. Midlife Crisis says, I think we have a problem. Are you reenacting Apollo 13, or do we actually have a problem?
oh yeah, I got nothing going on anymore. Yeah, what do you have, midlife crisis? What's the problem? Let's take a look at Cleveland.
This is going to be brilliant.
See what some of these roster tool. Yeah, we got Shoeless Joe, Joe Jackson, Chris Speaker. We got some
I
photos for
can't help but think
him.
what Jackson would have done if, I mean, if he would have been thrown out of baseball. I think he would have played well in the Babe Ruth era. I really do. Third highest batting average of all time. Damn.
So here we go. Yeah. So now that's just a little bit about how you can, grab photos and get them to show up in the game.
The problem is we're all afflicted, he says.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we have a problem. He's talking about all of us. Now we get what you're talking about. Yeah. We are all in
Right.
it together here. But yeah, we're all popping back and got 7 people joining us. But yeah, so this a little bit about what I had a chance today to work on is I've crunched a lot of these numbers, but then and I showed them during lunch, Beatles. You can go back and see it if it's interesting. But you put a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
work in just getting the data ready, and then there's the manual entry of actually coming over here and opening up. Hitting. There's two things you can do. Let me go to my build folder because I build in one and then import them back a second time over here just to kind of keep this one like the final draft. But I go to where I'm building them, and let's say I'm going to build a player from Boston. I can come up here and I can create a player from scratch. And sometimes it has this like ghosting where it keeps like maybe the nickname of somebody you open. I could create a player from scratch here, put the names, select all this information,
Mhm.
and hit save, right? And if
Right.
I don't put anything, it's still called no name. and then put all of the data in there, like going here,
Mhm.
I go in and I edit batting on this form, edit
Mhm.
fielding, or here's what you can do. You can right click on them and say, edit player statistics real. And you could enter if you'd rather enter with this form where it pulls up everything. So I could go in here and enter all their totals, totals versus lefty and
Wow.
all that stuff. So I don't ever go in,
God.
I don't ever use this. This is what that
Right.
bulk import Excel spreadsheet mimics these fields and it would bring it all in. It's just so cumbersome and
Wow.
I've never gone to use it. So what
Right.
I do is I will do all this by hand and I will create bing. Um, I'll go to edit batting. I'll add
Mhm.
batting numbers for a player, right? And then the next
Right.
thing for a batter you do is you go over here and edit fielding. And when I have all my fielding numbers up, I
Uh-huh.
look at my field and I go, okay, no name. Oh, he was a third baseman. I click third base here, and then I enter this information. Oh, he also played left. I go to left field, enter that information. Then I hit save.
That's
Um,
incredible. How it just amazes me how you keep like I mean your process must be just honed so well, right? Because I'm
it's
looking at
better
this
than
thing
it
and
has
I'm
been.
like,
I don't know. I wouldn't call it well oiled, but for me, it's less rusty.
yeah,
Here's another option. Let's say we're going to create. You don't want to create one from scratch, and you've already got a player as a head start. I went over this a little bit today. You can say um, player import, and you own a lot of seasons like me. I think I own them all. And let's say
I do
for
too.
for the
Yes.
Red Sox, we're going to create, I don't know, Bobby Dorr,
Sure.
and
Let's do it.
let's go to
Yeah.
1946. Okay,
Right.
I go to Boston, and I say, hey, get me Bobby Dorr, import. Thank you. Now I've got Bobby Dorr there, right? So I could create him from scratch, or I could start here and edit him. To me, it's six or a half dozen. It's the same amount of time. This is kind of nice because now when I go with Bobby Dorr here, um,
Mhm.
I can go up I'll go up to batting and you'll see he's got batting stats, but I don't want them because I don't want them from one year. I want to put my own information in. So I can go up here and clear the spreadsheet in building. Okay. Same thing with fielding. It comes in with the fielding from 1946, second base, right? Yeah. I don't want this. Clear all fielding statistics. Thank you. So if I bring him in and import him for what I'm doing, if you were doing an all-time great using that season, it's easy. You just import the players you want. You could create your own all-star teams or whatever. For me, it's
Right.
useless
Right.
because I have my own data. So I have
Right.
to,
Right.
I could import them and then I've got to go and delete all their current stuff and then add it, or I take the same amount of time and just create them from scratch and then I don't have to go and delete what's there. That makes sense. But I
D-
do get a head start
Yeah.
on this. I get a head start on the names already there. This gets
Right.
wonky once in a while. And then I have to
Right.
put like, you know, anything that's not already there. Do you know what I mean? So it's,
Because I know you've been putting uniform numbers and
yeah,
stuff.
I put a uniform number. So you can import a current player, completely get rid of their stuff and re-edit them if you're creating a like new data line, or you can create them from scratch. Either one you want to do, whatever feels
Jeez.
good. Trying to think what else is helpful for
You
people
know,
to know. Maybe
it's funny because the deeper you go in this game, it's like then more doors open,
I
right?
got a question for you, and maybe you can help me with this. Um,
Sure.
oh, and I was going to click on this.
Maybe.
Another thing.
Just don't
So I,
forget Fred Clark on the Pirates.
but if I brought Bobby Dorr in, let me get rid of this shoeless Joe. That's just embarrassing to look at. I don't know why it brings in some of those artifacts once in a while. Get rid of shoeless Joe. So one thing with
Okay.
Dorr is I brought him in for 1946, but let's say when I create his line, I'm going to have him in 42.
Okay.
Here's something most people may not know. If you just go up right here where it's saying that he's on a team now that's 1940 assigned to a neutral park, but the game
Right.
has to know where he came from. Where did his stats originate? So he came from 46 Fenway. If I want to change any of this, I just click right on it here. And when I left click, it opens this up. And it tells
Really?
me, oh yeah, it tells me,
I've never seen that.
and most people don't know that. It's not.
I just thought it was just text on a right?
Yep.
Wow.
Left click the mouse and it opens this window. And this means you can say, you know what? For my league, when I average him, I'm going to put him in 1942. Okay.
Damn.
To get it to stick, you have to double click. You just go double click 42. It'll say, hey, if you change this, it can really impact the results. Yeah, I know.
Right.
Watch. Now he's in 1942 Fenway. Now the game will refer to 1942 American League era data and 1942 Fenway ballpark numbers to examine Bobby Doerr and his gameplay.
Wow. Oh my God. I I mean, I've been playing this game 6 years, and that just wow.
Yes.
Did you
Current.
did you find that out by accident? Because I don't think that's in the manual
Yes.
anywhere.
Yes. Yeah, but it's been there for years. But yeah, I did find that by accident. Nobody told me to go look there. I'm like, oh, cool. This is a cool way where I can change where they're from because there's no really other easy way. If I right click on Bobby Doerr, okay, it's telling me here's his year, but it doesn't tell me the park that he came
Right.
from, right? So if I change this, that'll put him to a different year, but I can't mess with the park here. So what I found is the best way if you're going to move them around for what I do, I have to declare where they came from, and it's not usually where I've brought them in from if I've imported the player.
Mhm. It's crazy.
So we just go right here. Now we'll put him back. Oh, 46. You want him 46? Good. There you go. Double
That's
click 46 and he stays.
oh my God. I I just never knew that existed. In fact, a lot of the stuff that you've taught us through your videos, because I mean I've gone through that manual, and it really needs some writing. But how you found a lot of the stuff, because a lot of the stuff you've shown us isn't in the manual, or it's just explained maybe in a sentence.
Yeah.
Just wow. MV's asking you a question here.
Here's what we do. I go to 69 because I'm lucky I have these seasons here. We're going to find Hawk. Where's Hawk? Is he on Cleveland? So let's
Buy
go to
seasons,
Cleveland.
dudes. Buy seasons when you can. They're always.
Hawk Harrelson. There he is. Let's import him and play around with him here since this is just kind of a play area, a sandbox for me. I got Ken Harrelson here. So now we look on him. It's going to tell us where he came from because that's important for the game to know that. And it's going to say 1969 um, Fenway Park. Oh, I'm sorry, Cleveland Stadium. I'm thinking of Hawk with
Right,
Cleveland. So there you go.
right.
Now you'll notice what's weird is because I've been editing names, it's got some ghost artifact here where it's when I'm importing a player, it's given the Poli is Lejeune. So just delete that.
Right.
So we got Harrelson here. So now we want to do a what if. So let me think. How do I get to the what if? I never know.
That's under. Oh, jeez. Because I was just messing it with the other night.
Player report. Report
Right.
players what if. Okay.
That's it.
So let's take a look at all batters. Let's see.
There it is.
Okay,
Bottom
so
of the
here's all
first.
our files. So there's Harrelson right there. So we see that he is where he is, right? So what if we put him, where do you want to put him here? Coors, what
He's
in
at Coors
2010?
Field.
Okay, let's go.
Wow.
We pick 2010,
Talk about a
National
launch
League,
pad.
and then Coors. Refresh. There you go. Yeah, it bumps him up a little. He goes from 27 to 31 homers. He's going to strike out more in moving from that era, right? Because more strikeouts in that era. His average actually goes up from 222 to 225. He gets more doubles, four more doubles and four more home runs moving him there, and a tick on the average.
Hey, Arnold. Wow. I always loved this what if feature. It's
It's
so
cool, yeah.
cool.
So let's take a look at some of the other ones I have for the all-time greats, right? So you can look at what
Okay.
what it did to them. We take we take Tris Speaker and move him from that dead ball era he did to Coors, and it's putting him at 60 home runs.
Holy moly.
Now you got to realize that he probably wouldn't happen because he's only going to play what half of his games there.
Right.
But yeah, it just kind of shows you how somebody hitting 7 home runs back in 1912 or whatever era he's
Right.
assigned to, 13, something like that.
Mhm.
Pretty valuable.
Oh, absolutely. Wow. This game just just more and more. I mean, again, not knocking out of the park baseball, and it's a great game, but you can't do stuff like this in out of the park baseball.
Well, I
It's
watched.
not
I
there.
tuned in last night after you called it a
After the
night.
seven
I guess you
hour,
passed out. I don't know if you just fell down or what. You might have just conked out.
well, it was just Robbie wanted another game. I'm like, dude, 5:30 comes really
Oh
early. I'm
man,
afraid not, which God love you, Robbie, but oof.
I was getting ready to go to bed, and I just like anything, I'm almost addicted. They talk about these young kids being addicted to this stuff. I'm like, look at me.
Right.
I looked over and Al had started a PC replay, and then I've said this. I want to love that game, and I
Hmm.
do need to spend time. And it does look for like a dice rolling game and all that. It looks really good, and
Hmm.
I watched a little bit of it, and then you know what I thought to myself? I'm like, this game looks really good, and he was playing like like a all time franchise team, and
Yeah, I saw that.
I'm like, how does
And
the game account for them coming from different years? Because how does it happen in that game? Do they have a mechanism like Action does to know the universe they came from to, offset the stats and data? I mean, how would you
so
do that in
you know,
cards and
but
dice?
you couldn't, could you? Because if you have cards that are like, I'll just take like Strat, right, or Appa. Those cards are made for that season. So I don't know how you would do
Yeah.
that in cards and dice.
Anyway, that was fun with the Hawk. Now I'll get him. Oh, he's on Boston, I think. Yeah.
I take it Aaron isn't a Ken Harrelson fan. He says he wants to keep him to himself. So,
I love this sound. Ding, ding, ding. Oh, yeah.
yep.
He's probably as much a fan of Harrelson as you are ACDC, do I dare say?
You dare say that? I was waiting, Steve. Thanks a lot. Oh my God.
All right, that's my one reference. I'll let it die from now on.
You no, it's okay. It's fine. You just wait till next time we play head to head.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm happy to hang out. I've got another, 30 minutes here to hang out, but I just thought it's kind of nice to chat and then see if people have any questions. But those are some little tips and tricks like being able to select it. Um, Somebody asked earlier, like, how long does it take to make a player? And it's hard for me to tell because it takes quite a bit. It's going to take, good, I would say, if I sat down and I pick a player like Paul Wainer, it's
Okay.
probably going to take me 5 minutes to get his somewhere between 5 and 10 to get all of his raw data done.
Hmm.
Okay. Then I'll go in and I've got to neutralize it. Then I got to go find the years I'm using for the park and grab the park data. So, what, maybe 10 to 15 minutes if I'm really moving along, right? I can have all his stuff entered, I'd say maybe on my Excel
Okay.
sheet. Okay.
So,
Then, but I haven't
right,
built him in the game yet.
right, right. What about a multi-position player though, like
It's
Diego?
tougher. I,
Right, it's
I,
got to be.
I'll show it. We can see some over here if I blow up this is my master sheet that I work off of. It's got many, many projects on. If I go to the fielding, like you can see, let me bump this up so it's easier for people to see. But this is how I build it. So it's easy for me to have it in this format as I build it the way I go into the game and do it. But you can see it takes longer because if I've got Wagner here, I've got three positions I've got to figure out. So now I've got to go look at resources and fan graphs and that, figure out what ratings I'm going to give him. Then if there's outfield that needs an arm and double play six. So the more fielding positions, it takes longer putting that data in.
Right.
Pitchers are longer too because you have to put pitchers in.
Hmm.
You have to build all this stuff, right? And there's a lot of lines here, more lines to neutralize. And then over here, you got to have their versus lefty. And where you see EST, that means I'm going to have the game estimated. And it has a built
Okay.
in, it'll put generic like history of baseball lefty splits on it. The reason is some of these in the early and like pre late teens, there's not
Hmm.
versus lefty data yet at RetroSheet. But for almost
Okay.
for batters, there's enough to do it. So you'll see EST means I'll build everything, and then when I put them in like my build test I have here, I'll just run estimate lefty splits, and it'll do that. Then I have to do batting, right? Because they're all batting back then. So then you've got to do a full batter line on them. and then you've got to do fielding on them too. So pitchers take a little bit longer because um,
And didn't you
they're
say
they're
before
batting
too,
field.
Steve? There's a little bit more nuance with pitchers as well, in terms of
Um,
I can't remember. There was something I'd asked you about. There's something nuance, but I can't remember what it is now. Well, anyhow, midlife crisis has something in the chat that might answer the question about replay because he gives a strat. Did you
their
see
Hall
that?
of Fame set makes all. Okay, yeah. So like midlife saying, if they've got a Hall of Fame set like an all time greats, they can just design the cards for one universe, bringing them in and doing all the adjustments on the outside when they build the card. That's kind of like what I'm doing to some degree here. Yeah. And then they neutralize it. So if you look at the era data, I was checking out. I finished my Negro League data, which I'm going to go double check Satch Page just so you know.
Hmm.
This is my era
So was
data.
there an issue? Was there an issue with Page that made him whiff
I
20
think so, and
batters?
I'll show you where I'm coming from. I got to go look at Page's
Okay.
years, but if you look here, I've got AL on the left, NL, and over here on the right is Negro League.
Okay.
And these are just league era numbers. So if you look, this will be per 1,000 at bats. So you can see this is league average. So 1920, you've got they're batting 250.5, NL's batting 269, AL's batting 283, right? So some years you'll see the leagues over a little bit different than each other, and other times they'll be close. You can see this is historically. I'm back to 1904 now. Some of this data, there's not enough for me to feel good about like the ratios on ground balls and all that. But anyway, I've got what I can build in here. League ERA, runs per game, right? So this is a good point. So I'm going to look at
Okay.
Page. I call him Sage all the time. I
I
did that
like
the
that.
other
I like
day.
that. He was a sage.
Okay. So if I
That
go over
works.
here, Negro Leagues, neutral pitch, right? If I go up to,
Look at all those tabs, you guys.
oh, you have, I'll scroll through the tabs and
God.
show you. I have 28, 30, and 34. Okay.
Okay.
28, 30, and 34. So if we come over here, look at 28. Okay. These are strikeouts per 1,000 at bats. Okay. 110, 122, 143, right? So that average is probably about 124. I'm probably
Okay.
pretty close. 124 strikeouts. Now, let's go look at the National League, which I'm bringing everybody over to, and take a look at strikeouts there. 143 goes down to 96. Okay.
Okay.
126 is 88. What was the other one? 28 that's 110 is 80. So we're going to see probably one. You're going to see uh, roughly 88 divided by 140. You're going to see probably a 60. I'm going to say 65ish% is what it calls for to reduce his ratios, right? The reason being, now this would be if we just looked at his straight stat line, but I'm also having to go look at his major league equivalencies, right? That are estimated to bring him over, and then look at that number and make sure that he's not overly inflated for strikeouts, right? Because you're, if you're looking at errors, that was a high strikeout error. They're getting 25% more, 20% more strikeouts in that league.
Well, look, if I can ask you a question, just and this might not be helpful.
Yeah.
So we look at, so I'm thinking, from the dead ball era, somebody had a crazy strikeout numbers. Rube Waddell.
Okay.
So is Rube does because Rube Waddell does he average out higher or whatever than Page? Because
I've got him
Waddell's
done. Let's go.
statistics
Let's
are
go
going to be
see.
they're going to be a little bit more because you're not using you're instead of using it as equivalencies, you're using actual numbers. So how would Page stat or would is there a way that you could look at Page's numbers by checking Waddell's numbers? Now I
Yep.
realize it's a different year, but
This
different
is
average
Waddell.
number.
This is Waddell neutralized, but built into 1904. So look at the
Okay.
strikeouts for 1904. Okay, so he's going to put up 317, and these have all
Yes.
been geared to four. So let's take a look. He's going to put up 317, and we divide that by 345.33. Okay, so what do we
Okay.
call that? We call that like his strikeouts per inning, right? Or per 9 inning game. Let's
Per
do
nine,
this.
right? K per nine. Right.
All right, let me figure it out that way.
because Satch came up to like 8.4 or something in your original
Yeah,
when you
so
originally carded.
he's going to be sitting at right about 10.1
Adele is.
per nine.
Jeez,
10.1, right? That's huge.
that is huge.
Okay, and but look at how crazy that was for 1904. So let's go to 1904 and take a look at the strikeout rate here. 1904 American League, 121. A lot more if you look over here. Let's go take a look at equivalent over here. You're seeing 120, 125. Over in the National, it's 104, 107. So there was more strikeouts, another 10% strikeouts or 12% bump up in the AL. So if we bring him from 1904 and we move him to 1926, look, he's going to get him reduced. He won't strike out 317. You know why?
Oh,
Because he's going from an era of 120s down to 80.
okay,
Does that make sense?
it does make sense. It
Yeah.
does make sense.
That's why it's so important that the game knows when did he put that up. So, and then for him to catch back up to the 120s, let's look down here. We've got to get all the way to 1954 before, or sorry, 1952 before we ever see a rate in the 120s for the AL era.
Right.
So we move him into like the 50s here. He's going to perform very similar to strikeouts. We move him in the 20s to 30s where there was a lot of less strikeout and more hitters going on. He's not going to be striking out as much per nine.
Does make sense.
And the game will take care of this for us because we've built him with this in mind. And when you move him and he's playing over here, the game knows he came from here, from '04 to
Hmm.
121, and it's going to tone him down when that era had toned down strikeouts. And then he'll be probably performing as expected right here in the 50s, and he'll be a monster in the 60s. Look at this, where we're in the 160s, 170s, and all that. He's going to get,
Yeah,
another what, 20% kick up. So
yeah. He's gonna be up there with Koufax in that era again.
exactly, he's going to be in the high 300s, and we saw that from like Ryan and Koufax in those eras where they were high 300s.
Right.
And you'd expect the same thing if he pitched as many innings. So yeah,
Wow.
I mean, hopefully this isn't boring anybody. I mean, this is the stuff I love when I'm creating these.
It's
You
not
know,
boring me at all. I
I
think
don't,
it's this is
I don't want
this.
anybody to think that I'm just sitting around here just creating some card and making some crap up. I mean, there's a whole again, I call it, there's a lot of science, there's some science behind it, but there's a little bit of art too, right? And
Sure.
I call it number crunching, but I love this stuff.
Oh yeah.
um,
No, this is again right because it makes those stat. I mean, it's just I love it
you know
again. But like you, right, as a kid, right? Yeah, I'd look at the picture, the front, but it was the back. It was the stats,
yeah,
right? And looking at this is like it makes it even more like getting in. We talk about the game within the game, what these numbers and what they really mean. It's just
yeah.
crazy.
And let's take a look at Matthewson, a little different, right? So I've taken these 3 years,
Hmm.
'05, '08, and 9, and I average them. I come to 1907, and then I say, okay, I'm going to gear everything to 1907. So this line, he's already been done. So he's going to strike out what? 205, and divided by, he's got a lot of innings, right? And
Right.
then oh, I had to times it by 9. Hold on a second. I got my calculator going over here. Divide it by 333.33, and then we'll go multiply it out times 9 innings, right? And he's going to be, this is only going to be 5.5. So let's think about that. Matthew's going to be at 5.5 per 9 innings. That's not a lot of strikeouts really for that many innings,
No.
right? Now let's go
Hmm.
look at 1907 National. So we go over here to my era. We go to National League right here. We go to 1907, and we're going to see that's 107.3 strikeouts, right? So 5.5. But if we were to move him into the current over here, where we're doubling some of this, he's going to get a huge uptick, right? Um, so I don't. It's funny to me. Mathewson, not the same kind of strikeout pitcher like a Rube Waddell was,
Oh
or
no,
even
not
Walter Johnson's a little bit higher in that, right?
oh yeah.
Um, But if he was in 1907 American League, let me see, are they about the same? Oh, they're pretty close. Still, American League's like 5 points higher right here. Um, but yeah, he's about 5.5 for 9 innings, which.
I mean, but doesn't that really even brings out almost that you even get a better sense because I mean, no denying Mathewson was a great pitcher, but when you see these kinds of levels of performance between, I mean, which Mathewson and Waddell actually no, they did face each other in a World Series. So to see, or I don't know if they faced each other, but they were in the same World Series. But I mean, to see just I guess I'm getting more of a sense of within their time who was even more dominant and like
Yes.
how like you look at Walter Johnson and how he was so dominant and he lacked something that Christy Mathewson had. He didn't have run support. Christy Mathewson did, which is why I feel. And again, even and I'll bet your numbers will bear. I mean, could bear this out as well. But I mean, Mathewson had great offense behind him, and Johnson didn't, and still dominated. Despite like Johnson was almost an anomaly, maybe in a way that Rube Waddell was. Would that be accurate within their
Yeah.
own era?
Yes.
Oh,
MV, I'm going to take care of satisfy MV. He said he wants to see Doc Good in 1995 and 68. So I'm using this file as a
that'd be fun.
sandbox. I just brought him. Here he is, Doc Gooden, right? Just brought him on to Boston. Now let's move him to, where do you want to see? Let's just move him to 1968 and keep him in a neutral park. Let's bring him into 68 National, then we can check him in 68, right? Oh, I'm looking at batting,
You're the
aren't I?
pitcher.
What
That's
a
going to
dork.
be.
Go over here to pitching. Go to pitching. Yeah, there you
I
go.
see. Then
It's
I'd
not as
like to
much
see
as
him.
you think.
I'd like to see him in 1930 after you do 1968.
So look, he goes 268 to 285. Now let's go to 1968 American League.
Okay.
Oh, he goes up a little more, AL, right? Because strikeout ratios, right? So he's up to 296 there. Now we could put him in a. I don't know if the park's going to have anything to do with shouldn't have anything to do with strikeouts, but we can see. We'll pick one like
Where do you have? Oh, you have neutral park. So, well, yeah.
it should impact the hits he gives up, right, and home runs
Oh,
because
he wants in a Cardinals. He wants so that would be Sportsman's Park,
or Bush probably 68,
1968.
right?
68 would be
Bush.
was Bush. I thought because I thought Sportsman's was still around in 68. Maybe not. I could be wrong. God knows I've been wrong a lot.
There you go.
Well, let me see. I'm just curious. Now I'm just only because it's gonna bug me.
The cool thing is you can see his opponent average drops a little bit. He's going to give up a couple less hits. He's going to give up three less doubles, same amount of triples, three less home runs, and he's going to strike out what 20 or 17 more. So yeah, this is one of these things you can get in a rabbit hole and kind of check that out. Now you wanted to see him. Let's just move him to a neutral park and move him around baseball and just say
See, because
National
right here I'm
League.
just because Sportsman's Park, it just says here really quickly, Sportsman's Park was purchased by the Cardinals in 1953 for, believe it or not, $800,000. Anyhow, after the owner of Anheuser-Busch purchased the team from Fred Say, the ballpark was renamed Budweiser Stadium briefly before being named Busch Stadium. So I'm just trying to figure. I think it was still around in 1968 because wasn't
We'll
Busch
find out.
built?
I'll double check in the file here. We can see who's assigned. Check this out. I moved him to 1930 National League. Look at his strikeouts. He's going to
Oh
give
no,
up a lot
okay.
more hits.
So you're right. Bush Memorial Stadium opened in 1966. Okay, so this is 2 years after Sportsman's Park. Okay, so yeah, cool, got it. Awesome though.
Look, we put him in 1930, just a neutral park, just shifting his era.
Did he take a hit in 1930?
Look at his
I mean,
Ks. He
because that
goes
was
from 268 to 145, and
at
his
the end.
average against goes from 201 up to 244 because you had all the what was
Oh
it?
yeah,
And
well,
here,
that was the year Hack Wilson had 190 runs
yeah,
batted in.
and here's the proof because you took Gooden from NL right here, 1985, with
Hmm.
162 strikeouts per 1,000, right? Which that's a big era, and a 252 average. And then we drop him down to a 303 or up to 303 average, but he's got almost half as many strikeouts expected. Yeah, so real important. These errors are really important to be able to kind of move people around from file to file. And I get like an all-time greats approach where they've already done that work and they card them in
Hmm.
based on neutral stuff. Dave does that very well with the history collection. But it made me
Right,
wonder. But you couldn't do anything. You'd have to play with their all-time greats. But like if you grabbed, you know, different sets and brought like these three players over or whatever, I don't know if their game engine takes care of anything like action does. I mean, I don't know if PC replay baseball. It seems to me like it's really set up to realistically replay a season, an impact season. You don't have to worry about that then, right?
right. And I think, I mean, because they have those sort of memorable matchups they call it, but those are, yeah. I mean, I think that games like that, and I don't know, maybe I could be wrong about this. I think that those games are more geared towards season replays, and what I've seen a lot from cards and dice guys, for the most part, are season replays as opposed to what ifs. That's not saying that's the rule, but it seems to be. Well, I mean, I think it's safe to say though that like, even though Midlife Crisis talked about what Strat normalizes, like their Hall of Fame set, but right, you can do this digitally, and you're not having to buy a set to do that. I mean,
Oh,
you have to be a Steve Tate, I guess, but
well,
still,
you're not really. I mean, but you can rest assured that if you own seasons and you're dragging them in, that the game tracks that you just brought in 1968 Norm Cash, right?
right,
And on this team you brought in so and so. Then they came from where they are. Then you can go in and have them play the style, whatever current style you want. The game knows where they
right,
came from, and you can say, hey, I want to play a 19, bring them into the 1930s or a league average or whatever. You have a lot of you don't have to get in and kind of brew to the level I do. You can do importing and assembling very easily if you're not into the kind of in-depth homebrewing I do. And I know you do a lot of that, like, with draft, bringing
oh yeah,
players in and drafting and stuff like that. Very easy to
hmm,
do without having to get to
yeah.
the nonsense I do. you know, I,
Well, I wouldn't call it nonsense, but
well,
I call it brilliance, and I think anybody else here would say that. I mean, look, you've got how many people here watching you talk about numbers. So,
here's my 70s. So if you go back, you saw all the tabs I've got on this file. This is the 70s decade file raw numbers. And you can see that there's the batting, and then this would have been the fielding data that I had to get ready to build them in the game right here. So I've got tabs that go back to that. Here's my 80s that I built, and I think I did um, what else did I do? The 60s. But look here, I've got the 1910s. I didn't get all the teams done. I've just got to start here for all these to do a decade, all the way back here for the 10s, the 20s. See, I was adding split data in here. These are projects I didn't quite finish, so I've built those 60s, 70s, and 80s franchise file with the players like best 3 straight years. This is all the raw data ready to be finished for every decade. I just have never got around to it. Here's the 30. I mean,
God,
this stuff I was working on 10, 14 years ago.
jeez. I do hope you have this backed up like to cloud or
Yeah, I'm
somewhere
clouding it right
for this
now.
to work.
Here's the fielding 40s. I hadn't started. 40s were like kind of nobody really cares about the 40s as much as the rest of them, but here's the 50s. The 50s is
Oh,
the closest one
1940s baseball,
I
damn
have.
it.
I have ready to go. This will probably be the next one I complete because I was increasing the size of the rosters that were originally at 30 up to 40. So here's you can tell here for the Pirates, I added extra players that weren't originally on that. And now I'm going to have to go back and get split data for them and all that. But this one, I say it wouldn't take long, but if I ever go back and do another franchise, the next one that's closest ready to go would be the 50s.
Okay. See,
Um,
yeah, you can set era for that
yeah.
file.
How about the
That
1900s? I thought, what
that
about
baseball's top 160 teams.
1900 to 1909? I just barely started that, and here's the 1900s Pirates right here. You can see I'm picking the 3 years I'm going to use in a row. I'm getting the raw data done. Um, so that's kind of like a history of some of the projects I've worked on there. And then I worked off this same sheet, and then I got into this stuff, this nonsense. Ooh, 5-year teams. Somebody gave me this idea, and all hell broke loose. And then when you get over here, these would be called like, here's the 5-year Reds.
Oh
Um,
my God. It's almost overwhelming to look at, even. I mean,
Oh,
it's
oh, it is.
awesome,
It
but
is to
it's
go
like,
through
oh
here.
my
Let's talk
god,
about the Phillies here.
just
So here's when I assemble all the teams. So I'll go team by team, 76 to 80 Phillies, get all my raw data here, and then I flip over to the fielding data when I'm building them. And so I can go back and forth. I need all this data when I build the player. But this was all hand crunched and rated.
jeez, that's great. I can almost see MV. He's like chomping at the bit. He's looking at these. He's like, yes, please, please.
What's
Just
okay? What's he asking? Or can I set? Let's see what MV says. Dave all-time set top
yeah, the
166. The
top
league file is
160.
103. Does that mean the statistical? No. What'll
You
happen
can change that
sometimes?
MV. You can change that to anything you want.
Let's take a look at this. This league file.
Just like we did for
Let's go.
McGreevy.
Let's
I'm
go to
sorry to
one.
interrupt. Because remember we changed McGreevy. You can do that in the things that Dave sells as well. That's not hard coded that you have to use 1903. You don't. He probably had a reason for doing it, but you don't have to.
Let's pull up
You
19.
can make it 2021 if you want.
Typically, if you get a season from them, it's set to 1938. Okay, that this is the Negro League file for 1938. Now let's go take a look at the schedule. Okay, um, doesn't have a year on there. I'm trying to think. Let's look at rules. I'm trying to think where that will show up for you. Okay, the league name's 1938. That's just the name of it. This is where you'll see standard batter pitcher average. This is what you always want to use when you're in the same season because it's averaging where the pitcher came from and the batter came from. Guess what? They came from the same league. So this is what it should be. But when you look at the team, click on Kansas City, we go to modify the team. This is the team is telling you the base year is 1938 right here. The team is assigned to 1938 Neutral Park. And technically, this is wrong on Dave's disk. He has an actual, they should be assigned right here. Boom. They should be assigned. They come assigned default to national, but they should be to the Negro League because he has specific Negro League data for the years he's built. So I'm trying to figure out if I can explain the best way how it tells you what year it is because you don't really have to worry about that. Some of the mixed ones that we have, like on my 5 year file, I think it says 1930 or whatever, but it doesn't matter what it says. That kind of relates to the um, the schedule, I believe, because every one of those teams is set to a different year. So don't get too upset like when you're playing games and it shows it that it's 1903 because the league can't let's do it this way. The only way you can set what something's assigned to the year is the player, their year in park, and the team.
Well, no, but remember also for Ned McGreevy, we set everything to 1900 because remember you came in and said, "Wait a minute, the problem is you guys have this at 1906, and this is why the 19th century guys aren't performing." And you said, "Set it to
Good
1900,"
point.
and I
Let's
agreed,
talk about that.
right?
Okay.
Yeah.
And what you're talking about, I believe, is right here. So you came in and said, what is the league era? To me, standard batter pitcher is great when you have a real league
Hmm.
because your only other option is to select an individual one where it forces you to choose either American or national. So
Right.
if you've got a cross era group of people, you're going to have to pick, okay, I want to take I think action just adds up every era there ever was and takes the average of all those lines, right? Doubles, triples, batting average. Okay. Or you can say, I want to take, um, where did that thing go? Did I just, or you can go down here and select a specific league
Right.
and the file, but there's no combo. You can't say I want to play 1903 because there's no such thing. There's either 1903 American or 1903 national. So you're stuck with
Right.
one. So to me, you've got to then choose, okay, do I want the game where it's cross historical or am I just, okay, I'm going to play it this style, 1977 American League, right? The other thing is if you've got people coming from everywhere, you can still use batter pitcher. And during the game, what'll happen is if you've got Dwight Gooden in there and he came from 85, okay, let's pull this chart up and explain this. Here's the error, right? So Dwight Gooden will, the game will say 1985 Dwight Gooden. It's going to look at all this data right here, okay, the ratios. And then if he's facing, Shoeless Joe from 1916 over here, it will look at these and it basically takes those two errors that are very different and averages them and cuts them in half. It averages the two, and that's what the
Right.
outcome is based on. So when you see standard batter pitcher average, that's what it's doing. It's one way to approach it, right? So,
Right.
and it's the right way to approach it with an existing season because they all come from the same season. This is the way you want it. So yeah, that's a good point out that you're bringing out. You can do all three. You can let it average between where the two individual matchups come from. You can put cross era historical, or you can pick a specific league and year and play that style.
And you saved in that McGreevy league because all we did was we thought, okay, let's just pick 1906 because that's the middle year, and
Yeah,
then we're just noticing that Keeler's striking out. And you said, well,
yeah.
look
Let's
at the
look at it.
strikeouts in 1906,
Yeah,
and then
let's
when
pop this thing
we
up a
bumped
little
it down
bit.
to 1900, and now Keeler's doing what he's supposed to do, and
Yeah, look at this. So you went from 244 as the average the year
right,
you had. Well, you had it National League. Am I right with that?
1906 National
Yep.
League,
So
yes.
then you went right here. So you just bumped up 30 what? 35 points.
Hmm.
A lot more hitter friendly, right? Strikeouts here, less strikeouts. Look at your strikeout. So you got 114. Now you go down to 68 per 1,000. So you're going to see more balls in play,
Right.
more runners on base, right? Um, yeah. So all in that information. I just like seeing it this way. So this is where I've created I like to be able to see this error data. So when I'm going and referring and trying to figure out how to maneuver people around, I like having this. And now for the Negro Leagues, I've got a lot of this stuff built out where I can easily come here and reference it. And you can see the Negro Leagues, the one thing that stands out, if you look over here where it's 115 strikeouts, their strikeouts throughout the years are always more than the major leagues. Good 10 to 20 points higher. Much more strikeout oriented league. Walks, let's take a look here. We got 70s and 80s. Yeah, they're up too. So there was a little bit more walking and a lot more strikeouts going on in the Negro Leagues. Stolen bases for the NL, look at these. We got numbers in the 30s right here. We go right over here, stolen bases. You've got high 30s, 40. You've got probably, 10 to 15%, maybe 20 in some seasons more stealing going on there.
Oh yeah.
Um, and I'm still trying to make sure I can get enough data off Steam heads where I feel like I'm getting good, ratios on these to compare ground balls and different things that matter in the game. I've got an anomaly here. I've got to figure out. There's no way they're getting 250 hit batters, but you can see some of these. For the most part, you got about 7-8% hit batsmen over here, right? And that's pretty common to what you see over here in Major League Baseball. You'll also see different errors here when you look at doubles over the time, right? High 30s and 40s right here, and you look over here, and guess what? 30s and 40s is what you see. I mean, there's a little bit difference, but very similar style of ball in that era. The averages seem to be, to me, just a little bit different, and it varies year by year here. But it's fun stuff. Home run rates, a lot less home run rates. So let's look at the home run rates over here. We start getting up into here. Um, Maybe it doesn't look like there's a lot, but I think when I averaged them up, there's a little less. They're playing in a little bit bigger ballparks. They're more pitcher friendly. American League. Oh, where's the home runs over here in American leagues? Right, you can see single digits until you get into about 1920, 21. It gets closer to 8 and all that good stuff. Over in the Negro leagues, you're still at 4, 9. It's catching up a little bit, right? That similar style. Now you're seeing home run hitting in the late 20s that are in the mid teens and very similar to the National League. Um,
And
so,
steals went down a bit. I think you had mentioned right
oh
once
yeah, you'll look at
once you start to see the power creep in
oh
the
yeah,
Negro leagues.
once you
Yeah.
see this home run rate go up here and start double digits, you'll look over here and start seeing 20s and low 30s, where before you saw some higher 30s and 40s. When you
right.
look at those trends, you'll see it. Then it gets even lower here. When you go into the 30s, look at these steal rates are down where they were.
Now I
Here's
do
what,
have.
yeah.
I had a question that's going to probably shock everybody because it's an F-ball question. Aha.
Wow.
Okay. So, but just because I guess for my own notification. So, um, so I do know this much about F-ball. It had tons of rule changes. People told me that F-ball in 1967 is very different in a lot of ways, rules-wise, from like say 1987 or whatever. So my question is, when you're doing this for that sport, how do you do cross-era stuff with that when there's certain things that were what is it like? There's something that you used to be allowed in F-ball that you're not. There's you guys are all F-ball fans, and you know what I think you know what I'm getting at. There were some major rule changes. So
Yeah.
I always thought that baseball was more
You,
evolutionary,
you've
and
got you've got
F-ball was more
season
like we're
changing.
changing this up, right? So
Well,
how do you compare players across eras in that sport? Because I
same.
understand how it's done in baseball, even with rule changes.
Well,
So
let's talk about that for a little bit. This is my 5-year file for football. These are the teams, and you can go player by. This one's very involved too because you'll start seeing a lot of my information I need on adjusting eras and different things. Here's a Pittsburgh Steeler team, right? We
okay,
pop them up a little bit, and you can start seeing some of my data numbers and then what I'm going to build into the game. And this is the information I need to go in and manually edit this stuff too, right? So 1978, there's a rule change for making passing a little bit more friendly. But here's what's interesting, and they went from 14 to 16 games. So if I'm going to use them, I'll adjust. So if I'm going to use 77, 78, and I'm using 78, I'll bump up and add some yardage there because the game needs to know the player was in 1978. So I'm going to fire up football. Where's it at right here? Fire up this file and I'll show you. It has its own era built in as well, which helps the game engine know where did this player come from. So let me drag this over here. Man, I really appreciate Beatles allowing the F ball to be mentioned.
amazing, huh? Well,
Part of,
and even me asking
part
the question.
part of learning today. Yeah. Let me drag this.
Well,
Let's get
that's
over here.
that's always. Well, I'm kind of curious about that because I do know that it had some some changes that were pretty significant. You know,
Yeah, it
I mean, there's a
it is.
delineation from dead ball to right. So for but 1920 on, right? But but from my understanding, F ball. I mean, there and I wish and you. I'm count. Not that I'm taking an interest in F ball, guys. Don't get shocked here. I'm just curious how that works in a game that had right, varying amounts of games in a season, right? Because baseball was 154 games for a long time, then it's been 162 since whenever.
Yeah,
But you
football was
had different
12,
amounts of
14,
games,
16, now 17.
right? So how do those statistics become meaningful if you're playing across eras? I'm not
Let's
getting it.
pull up
And other
Pittsburgh.
rules changes. Okay,
So we just go to the general team thing, right? I've got to
okay,
tell it, and these are averages of what they actually put up during the years I use, right? We're telling it, it's got to know what year is this team from, right? Here's the other thing it
okay.
needs to know. Are these an existing team, like they're all from the same season, or was this a draft? So I've told it it's a draft, which means it's going to now rely on the players and the ratings and where they come from.
Hmm.
That's very important. Okay.
Okay.
So if we look at a player here, like if I went to modify, let's go to the quarterback. She got Bradshaw here. I modify him. You can see I've got all this information to fill out right here. And where's his? Okay. In the team, if I want to edit this roster, right, I go to generate default ratings and it's telling me this is like if you didn't have ratings your own, you could have it look, you could put in like some general team stuff and it'll do a good job of trying to assign defensive ratings and lineman ratings, right? I do that myself. So I don't use this tool within the game. But if you pop in here, it's telling you the league rushing average was 4, completion percentage 53. So let's think about this. Look at Terry Bradshaw. Now the rating is the rating because that there's a formula that tells you what the QB rating is. But Bradshaw is completing 55% of his passes in the league where there was 53. So he's above average. Yards per completion, sacks per attempt, all that good stuff, right? Now let's go over and look at a more current team, like let's go at 85, 89 Rams here. Let's get Jim Everett here. Let's modify him. Now, you can see got all his good information in here, right? He's a 59%. But if we go up here to modify team or edit roster, generate default ratings, it gives us this view. So now he's in a, you'll notice the league's different now. There was 3.9 average rush, not 4. The completion percentage here for the league is 55.4%, not 53. So it's a little bit higher requirement, right? And these numbers change. So it's a way for the game to know, okay, where did this person put the numbers up? What was the league average? So it does very similarly to what the baseball game does.
Okay,
So when you're
that
looking at
helps.
raw numbers, like if you're looking at a rating, you're going to see the newer folks have higher rating because the style changed. They're making shorter passes. They're completing more, right? But it's going to look at the year they're assigned and look at that data. Now let's go to a more current one. So we just saw 55% average. Um, Where's a more current one? I don't think I got Indianapolis here with Peyton Manning. I tend to do the stuff for my era and older before I do the new ones. Oh, here's Peyton Manning in Indy. So we just go here. Let's take a look at edit roster. Now we're looking at Manning. Now check this out. Manning has 66%, but guess what? The league average was 61. Okay. So you can't look at him and say, hey, his 61 compared to um, Bradshaw's 55 is on equal footing. It's Manning 66 in a 61 era versus a 55 guy in a 53 era. That's what the game does. Same
Okay.
thing here with yards per completion based on what his were, versus what the era was, um, how often they got sacked, that kind of good stuff. So hopefully that explains it. Their era
That does
is
help.
built in.
Yeah, I was just curious. Like, I mean, because again, I'm never going to play it, but I was just curious how the two compare. With those different, so many more variables. It seems to me in F-ball in terms of rule changes and season length and things like that. So I was just curious, just for my own intellectual curiosity. But I know the other guys here are F-ball fans, so they would
Yep.
be way more like, oh, so that's how it works. But MV had back to the real sport. He had a question of, I don't know if you saw it in the
Yeah.
chat.
He cussed. He said it. Like the gasoline downer
Yeah.
slice from 70s. What's the ideal way to set that up? Should I change anything to allow? No, you get to choose where they come from. So think about it this, MV. The game needs to know where they came from. It's like you transported the 30s in and you transported the Dodgers from the 70s. Now you got to determine what universe they came to. What's your field of dreams? Is it 1978? Is it allowing the batter pitcher average to do the work for you? So when Ron Say comes up, it's looking at 1975, and when who's a pitcher when Paul Dean's pitching, it's looking at 1934, and then it'll handle that for each batter pitcher matchup. That's what I like to do. Or you could just put them in an average era, the cross historical, or you could say, hey, I want to bring those two teams, 70s and 30s, and I want to put them in 2005 Fenway. Or you know what I mean, or assign them to Fenway. You could do anything you want. It's up to you. No right or
That's
there's no
great
right or wrong
news.
to any of this.
Isn't that nice that that's built in that way, right? That you can do
Yes,
like you don't have to worry about that,
yes,
you know.
agreed.
Just
Anyway,
one thing
got to
about
show off
the
some of the.
I just was gonna tell you guys while you find something. I found something really weird on YouTube, and it was official. It freaked me out. So it was a story. It was the 1980 Phillies season, right? And the film was produced. Are you ready? This is weird by NFL Films. Why?
Wow.
Why would? Isn't that weird?
Well,
I
they
don't
were
know
good at
why
what
did
they
like is
did,
it
right? They were like the premier.
apparently I guess baseball was like, hey, here, will you guys do this? But that was weird.
Check this out. Now that we're talking about eras, because eras are really, I think it can be confusing for people. They're like, how do I? Really, it's up to you. Just knowing how they work in the game for these what ifs and figuring out how you want to play them. If it's a known season, just set it on standard whatever and let it do its stuff. If you're mixing stuff, just figure out where do you want to put them.
I wonder if
This
Out
is
of the Park has a similar thing. You know what? That engine, you can't. It's really hard to see into that engine. Like, it's this is so transparent. Action PC, any sport, but with Out of the Park baseball, I wonder how. I should put that or ask MV's question if he doesn't mind on the Out of the Park forums because I wonder if they do the same thing as Action PC.
The same, and I'm gonna show basketball because it's in the same. It's harder to get to. You got to be within the team and go to your generate ratings to pull up, kind of see what era they're in. Um, Basketball similar to baseball. If you go into organize here and you can go to historical era data, yes, we got the warning. Now you're going to see that um, they've got era data for pro and college, right?
Oh, okay.
So if I want to go back and look at the data, I'm like, hey, check this out. What was it like? You'll see pre. Let's go back to 1969. You're seeing how many attempts per game, what I call the pace of play, right? They're going to hoof up. Well, the 80s had a lot, but look at this. In 83, they're only putting up 88 field goal attempts a game. In 69, they're just throwing the ball up everywhere. Tons, a lot more misses, a lot more rebound chances. So you need to know that the average amount of rebounds available, 52.9, and then you go into the 80s and it's down to only 43 per game. You need to know if somebody puts up rebounds. You can't move them to another thing and say, oh, why do they go down in rebounds? Well, you moved them to a less rebounding era. So they have all this era data in there that allows the game to function, bringing players in. And basketball set up a lot like baseball, where you can go into this era thing and look each year by year and see all that respective data for. And what's nice is they put the visual. You can see the field goal percentage and free throw percentage change. So we go back in time, look how bad they were. They couldn't make anything.
Wasn't
Look at it.
so my question about
379.
yeah, big difference.
Horrible.
So my question about basketball, and I think basketball is a pretty cool sport, which is why I will actually say its full name. Um, didn't what wasn't there a time where they differentiated between types of rebounds in basketball, or am I just like in some alternate weird universe that
Well, it's
there's
hard to
not?
find old data. I mean, in rebounds, you've got total rebounds, right? And then you've got off how many were offensive.
That's right.
Yep.
Okay.
And then what's left over is the defensive. So in the game, when you card a player, for example, on one of my teams here, let's pull up how about a Wilt team back in the day. Wilt's pretty good. You'll see here when you
I
go
used to like basketball a little bit, so that's just kind of fascinating to me.
if we modify Wilt, and there's so many cool things you can do in the basketball game was the first game of action I ever really got into. Started homebrewing, so you got all his good stuff here. You're telling it what type it was, right? So you're telling it that it's a pro, not a college or ABA or an Olympic team, because Dave has some Olympic things that have their own era. So
So
he's a
is it
pro.
important? Is ABA, but wasn't ABA right? That was like sort of like
Yep.
the way it used to be in right? Wasn't that like the American League for basketball, right? American Basketball
Kind of in a
Association.
way, but it was even a little bit more rogue, right? They're the ones that came up with the 3-point shot. That was a little flashier style, but in the
Because we
game,
had a team in Pittsburgh
the
that was an
Pipers.
ABA team, right? And then there's no basketball, professional basketball team in Pittsburgh. That's why I was
Yep.
just wondering because they were an ABA team, and I never knew the difference.
Yeah, and
So the I'm sorry to I don't mean to veer off, but I'm getting a little basketball here.
yeah.
Um, so did the like for those championships back in the day when those leagues existed, did the NBA play? Did the best NBA team play the best ABA team in like a whatever World Series? I
No,
don't
the
whatever
only
you
time
call
they
it.
did, I think, once is for the All Star game. I think the ABA. I think what was it? The Denver. No, they didn't really do any cross things that I can remember. Maybe they did
So
one or
they
two
didn't like
games.
each other. They weren't like
Oh no,
the
it
NBA
complete.
was
Yeah.
always like the thing, right? And
And then when
ABA was
the
kind of like
ABA
the other
folded, they
things.
brought in some teams like the San Antonio Spurs and Denver Nuggets came along, and the
Okay.
Nets.
I'll be damned.
But
I always thought that was just like two leagues like baseball. Hmm,
Yeah. What about the Pisces?
okay.
He's talking about what's the one with Will Ferrell, that mock movie? Oh, I show it. Trying to think what it
Yeah.
was where he plays the old NBA guy. But here under like team, when you modify a team, you can modify the,
Okay.
the basic stuff with the team. Okay. Let's see, what's pulling up here? Oh, here it comes. Same thing. Team information. You're telling it what type is it? It's a pro, ABA, or college. It needs to know that. Is it an existing stock team, mean all the players on that team played together that season, or is it draft? And is it
Oh
a
wow.
men's league or a women's league? Okay. The other thing, if you go to college, it allows you to set strength of schedule, which is important. Like if you got a powerhouse college team playing a little school, right? You can set that, and
Georgetown,
then
right, would
then you
be
set your base year for your team. So for this
okay.
team, this 5 year, it's pro, it's draft, meaning the players come from various backgrounds. They're not stock off that year. It's
Okay.
men. And then when you go into edit players, you pull this up and you say, hey, I want to go and edit players. Same thing, general information. I can go in here and edit height, weight, uniform number. Okay. Oh, I want to add something else. Well, let me edit player ratings. So I can come over here and edit the ratings for their offense, pass, how much percentage time that they play inside, which is important, position on there. Uh, Different ratings on a 1 to 10, clutch, all that good stuff. Some of these will be generated by a default generator. If you don't know them, it'll go off the stats, right? So it's very easy to create. And then you've also got player stats. So this is where I would come in and see this is a year they didn't have any 3-point shots, and you put in the raw data. Again, this was all averaged, their best um, 2 straight years for that 5 year run. And you edit all that good stuff in there. Another thing you can do is you can edit positions from here. Their
Jeez.
primary, if there's a secondary or a spot one that they play. And then
This
you
looks
can,
almost as intensive. This looks as
oh, it
about as
is.
intense as baseball, if
Yep.
not more.
Then you go to default and you tell them, hey, I want default for just whatever. And if you've got existing stuff and you didn't have, like, let's say you didn't have turnover data for old years, you once you've set it to the era it's in, you can hit this button and it'll only generate the data you haven't been able to come up with. It's really
Wow.
cool for home brewers.
Wow.
Um, or you could just go in and right click and hit modify player, and then you could come in again and do whatever you want. So
Wild.
or do you want to use his first name a lot in the play by play? Click here. If he's known for a favorite shot, you can if it's an inside or a dunk, and then if it has a special name. I saw Wilt had a finger roll listed there, so you can do some editing here, and it's pretty deep. I mean, the games are all deep. This was the
Oh
one I
yeah.
first homebrewed for before I even started homebrewing for football and baseball was basketball.
Oh wow.
And a lot of these you can see I've already got player photos done, and we can run. It'll be fun. We'll just run a quick, take 2 seconds.
People want you to do a basketball
I know I'm
broadcast,
going
by
to
the
have to
way.
do that. But let's run a quick one. Let's grab a team like an older team, and let me show you a cool thing I have on. I have 3-point lines on. And you could say, well, how can these old teams shoot 3-pointers? Well, I'll show you how. Let's look at 61 to 65 Lakers. Here's what it'll do. If we look at their ratings, you'll see that their outside rating that they're given will determine, the game engine will look and it will try to emulate if they were playing in the 3-point shot era. And what I found it'll
That's what
use is
that would
the
do.
ratings here.
Hmm.
So let's run a game with this old Elgin Baylor LA team against a current team and show you how well the game does in. I could shut 3-point off, right? But that's what's really tough in basketball, pre 3-point after, right? So let's take Los
Okay.
Angeles, the old team. Let's take a new team. Who do I even care about?
Should take
New.
a Michael Jordan team.
Okay, let's go take a Michael Jordan team. Where's Chicago at? 93 to 97 Chicago. Okay,
Okay.
we're going to play it. We're going to sim it. I got to drag my stuff over here. We're going to go computer. We could play it on a neutral court. I don't really care about that. Yeah, let's play it on a neutral court. All kinds of good stuff. The graphics are a lot better in the basketball now too.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, the move. I call it ball movement. So here we go. I've got it on. I've got to drag it over my other screen, and the game is now over. So it's going to look horrible if I bring it over. It's not set for this screen, but you can kind of
Okay.
see where we're at.
Hmm.
Look at scoring by period, scoring overall. This will give you all the scoring plays, playing time, player stats. And here, Chicago won 131 to 108. But let's take a look at this. If we notice, here's the 3-point shot. 7 of 11 they were, and who took them? Jerry West took 5 of 7, Baylor 2 of 4. So it does a really great job. I've done tons of testing on the basketball game. to simulate that. And if we scroll over here, you can see Chicago was 10 to 17 on 3-point shot. So it does a really good job of some of the older teams putting them in an era and having realistic players take what would be realistic 3-point attempts.
Dave Little needs to know about this file if he doesn't. He's like the basketball guy in the community.
Hmm.
So, yeah, and he's a good broadcaster. It sounds like you're listening to a real basketball game.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to have to run, so I guess I'm going
Oh
to go down
man,
there. I'm going to go down and ride my bike before dinner. Maybe I will tune into Beatles
ooh,
channel and listen to something else or watch a baseball game while I'm doing that. That's a hint.
okay, yeah, sure.
Well,
I
change
could do
for
that.
this. What if an exhibition to have been played in, say, year 1998? Not sure what I'm.
Did
Okay.
you drop out? I think Steve dropped out.
No, I'm here.
Oh, okay, because you went really quiet. I'm sorry. What did you
I,
say?
I'm reading MV's thing, trying to figure out what if we played in the year
Oh,
1998, and I got baseball still up. I would just say, if you want to play an exhibition game in 98, just grab the two. You need to come over here and change your league to whatever you've got open for them to run that game in 98. So you come down here, but you're going to be forced to choose, is it 98 American or national? Because there's no combined era of the two, right? So you'd have to pick one of the two here. And then change the league to that, then go run your exhibition. Because when you pick it, all you're going to be met with is, hey, I want to pick, there's a Negro League game. Because you don't get to, after you select it and go into the game, to move your era around there, if that makes sense. You would have to move it in the league before you kicked off your exhibition game.
all good stuff. None of this is boring. Um, I will be catching later on because I want to see the video that you did earlier today because I've never seen the process all the way through, and so it'll be interesting to see it.
It's about, it's just kind of funny to me. It's odd that other people like this. My wife thinks I'm crazy. She goes, "Oh, look at you." My daughter could, she'll be like, "Hey, there's your dad and his numbers again." That's what she'll say. He's in there with his numbers, with just a
His
just a
numbers.
just staring at a screen with a bunch of numbers on it. That's what I've heard that
Oh,
for years.
oh no, it's like reading to that's what would be the literary equivalent? It's like, no, I'm actually reading Chaucer.
Yes, yes.
It really is, you know.
So yeah, yeah, I'm gonna end it here now because people are probably, oh my gosh, we've heard enough of this crap. But I am happy to
Good.
come on whenever. I think I may be a couple of days a week looking when I take my lunch break. Why not fire up maybe during my lunchtime, mountain time, and just do a quick chat and maybe share progress or answer a few questions or kind of show if people are interested in what I'm doing or have a question about building and doing things like that. I'm happy to help out and answer questions like that. That might be something I look at here in the future.
Nice.
Little lunchtime chats, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, thanks for yeah, like saying let's come on and have this little chat, and hope you guys didn't mind me asking questions of the other sports. I think it helps you guys out because you guys are fans of those sports, and
Yeah,
I'm not. But at least through Steve answering my questions, I was like, oh, okay, maybe that helps you guys
yeah.
too. So,
I love all the data and the crunching and all this stuff, but yeah, happy to dig in deeper if people want. And but with that, yeah, I'm gonna call it quits and for
all right,
now.
my
And then
friend.
hopefully when I go ride the bike, I'll be watching something on your channel, entertaining myself before dinner. But
Yeah,
thanks for
I'm
coming
just
on
gonna
with me.
fire up. Yeah, I'm just gonna fire up an Ernie Harwell game because my
Awesome.
voice is a bit shot right now. So,
That's perfect, man. Hey, Arnold, glad you're here. Thanks for everybody showing up with me, Midlife and MV and Arnold's here and Robbie, of course. I think he's standing in front of the door, and as soon as the door opens, Robbie just steps in immediately.
Robbie's in.
Um,
He's in.
Big
You're gonna get him
Clue
a
is here.
skybox.
Midlife Crisis, World's Worst Gamer. Yeah. All right, guys. I'll see you down the road, and I guess I'll see you over there. I'll be watching the Beatles and some Ernie Harwell for sure.